I had always dismissed the old warnings about isolated houses in the woods. But when the whispers started, I realized too late that some things aren't meant to be ignored. When my partner Emily and I found the bungalow tucked away in the woods, it felt like a dream, secluded, peaceful, just what we needed after the chaos of city life. The house was quaint, a little rundown, but with an undeniable charm. Its walls were aged, its floors creaked with every step, but there was something oddly welcoming about it. The land around it stretched for miles, uninterrupted by anything but trees. We thought we'd found the perfect getaway. The first few days were idyllic. We spent mornings walking through the woods, afternoons in the sun, and evenings curled up by the fire. But then, on the fourth night, the whispers started. At first, I thought it was the wind. An old house like this could creak and groan under pressure, but this was different. The whispers were too deliberate. They were soft, almost inaudible, like the sound of someone speaking just outside the room. We both dismissed it as our imagination playing tricks on us, but by the third night, it was undeniable. Emily and I lay in bed, the room dimly lit by the soft glow of the fireplace. The whispers came again, faint, drifting through the air like smoke. I glanced at Emily, hoping she hadn't heard it, but her eyes were wide, locked onto the same spot on the wall. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I nodded, feeling a chill spread through me. "It's just the house settling," I said, trying to convince both of us. But as I said it, I wasn't so sure anymore. There was something unsettling about the way the sound echoed in the room, like it was coming from the very walls themselves. The next few days were filled with an eerie tension. The whispers continued, growing louder each night. Sometimes it sounded like a woman's voice, other times like two people having a low conversation. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was unmistakably unsettling, pleading, almost desperate. I tried to ignore it, to tell myself it was just the house's age or the wind finding its way through the cracks. But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that we weren't alone. One evening, after another restless night filled with the soft murmurs, I decided to investigate. I stood up and pressed my ear to the wall, trying to catch the faintest hint of the voice. Emily watched from the bed, her face pale with concern. "I'm sure it's nothing," I said, though my voice trembled. "I'll check the house, see if something's making that sound." The house was silent when I moved through it, just the faint rustle of the wind outside and the occasional creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. I checked every room, every closet, but found nothing unusual. When I returned to the bedroom, Emily was already on edge. "Did you find anything?" she asked, her eyes darting around the room as if expecting someone to appear at any moment. I shook my head. "Nothing," I said, though I felt the creeping sense that something wasn't right. The whispers didn't stop. In fact, they got worse. They started to happen during the day now, when the house was still and we were both awake. Sometimes I'd be in the kitchen, preparing food, and I'd hear the unmistakable murmur behind me, as if someone was standing just out of sight. I would turn, expecting to see someone there, but nothing. No one, just the emptiness of the house. It wasn't until one late afternoon that I found the source. It was by accident, really. I was in the living room, inspecting the old weathered walls, trying to pinpoint the source of the strange noise, when I noticed something odd. There was a small, almost imperceptible crack in the wall, near the fireplace, a crack that hadn't been there before. It was just wide enough to see something behind it if I leaned in close. I hesitated for a moment, the hairs on the back of my neck prickling, but Curiosity got the better of me. I grabbed a nearby tool and gently pried the crack open. The sound of the wood creaking under my hands was deafening in the quiet room. And then, as the wall gave way, I saw a tan old wooden door hidden in the wall. A door I had never noticed before. I called Emily over, and together we pulled at the door, which creaked open with a dry, rasping sound. Behind it was a small, dark room, no bigger than a closet. Inside we found nothing, at least nothing visible. But as soon as we stepped into the room, the whispers came again, louder this time, as if the walls themselves were speaking directly to us. The air in the room was cold, unnaturally so, and I could feel my breath quicken. There were no windows, no lights, and no signs of any previous occupant. The only thing in the room was an old, tattered rocking chair in the corner, its wood worn smooth by years of use. We stared at the chair for what felt like an eternity, the whispers growing louder with each passing second. It felt as though the very house itself was watching us, waiting for us to make a move. But then in the corner of the room, something caught my eye. A small, faded photograph, half buried in the dust on the floor. I bent down to pick it up, my fingers trembling. The photo was of a woman young, with hollow eyes, standing in front of the bungalow. Her smile was twisted, unsettling. And behind her, I could just make out the outline of the hidden room. We both froze, the realization creeping over us. This house had been hiding something dark. The whispers, the coldness, the unsettling feeling that had clung to us from the very beginning, it all made sense now. And as we stood there, frozen in fear, I heard it again this time, unmistakably clear. Leave, before it's too late. The photo fell from my hands, fluttering to the ground like a leaf in the wind. I don't know how long we stood there, but when we finally turned to leave, the whispers stopped. For the first time in weeks, there was silence. But I knew better than to believe it was over. The house still had its secrets, and it was watching. Always watching. We never stayed another night in that bungalow. And to this day, I can still hear the whispers faintly, like they're just beyond the wall. The house is still there, decaying in the woods, and I can't help but wonder, who or what is still waiting inside?